Hello, everybody. My name is Jacob Hill, and this is my Manifesto podcast. So, for this project, we were tasked with coming up with our education manifesto. And for me, it's all about 180. 180 are the number of school days that the average American student is in class. And the reason for these 180 days is based on an archaic system. It was based on a system that was created for agriculture so that students could be home with their families, helping on the farm during busy farm times, the summer and early fall. So, and this was created over 100 years ago. So, but now today, less than 10% of the US population lives in rural or agricultural areas. We live in cities and towns, and not the world, or excuse me, the national economy is not based on agriculture anymore. And speaking of economy, I think it's important to bring up that the world economy, more than ever before in our history, is dependent on each nation. So we are so very interconnected now and so very competitive. And I think competitive is the key word here. The US, compared to most developed nations, so Europe, South America, Asia, places like that, we rank really low in education, as it turns out. In between anywhere from the low to mid 20s, all the way up to 13th or 14th in algebra internationally. And this has not always been the case. And the US used to lead the world in education 40, 50 years ago. And there are many, many reasons for this change and why we've fallen back. And the US is quite different than a lot of these countries that are ahead of us. But one key one key that is true throughout all of the nations that are above us, they have a longer school year. And so they range anywhere from 190 to all the way up to 230 days a year of education and class. So I think if we want to, as a nation, increase our competitiveness and rank higher, one thing that we have to do is go to school longer. So now I'd like to go through a few pros and cons of what a longer school year would look like. Now, for my manifesto, I decided around 200 days. That's an extra month or so of instruction. That's the word I keep looking for, of instruction. And so, what's a pro of this? A lot of this nation is required to take standardized testing, and I know how controversial those are. And so, but if we had, and how much time they end up taking out of the school year, about a month or so of teachers prepping students just for the test, not teaching, but prepping. So if the school year was longer, the percentage of time taken up by these tests would actually be smaller. Now, I'm one of those people who believes they should be getting rid of be completely taken off the books. But if the school year is longer, it allows for more time for testing. It's less impactful on the students and it allows the teachers a chance to teach more, which I think is everyone's main goal is for teachers to teach and not prep students for national and state testing. Another pro that I know was true for me when I was in high school and middle school is that when it's a school night, you're home. You're not doing anything nefarious or causing ruckus or mischief. And I found a chart that's in my manifesto that shows that household burglary is up 10% during the summer. Um, its motor vehicle theft is up 5% during the spring, and total property crime is up 8% during the spring. Excuse me, during the summer on all those. They're not during the spring, during the summer, which means that while students are going to class, they are causing what the national crime statistics are down. Now, I agree that there are some other factors, like it's warmer during the summer, so people are out later. But I believe that if students, if it's a school night, you're home either doing homework or I know this isn't popular for the students, but it should be popular for the parents. Another pro of this, of having a longer school year, and this is more for the younger students, is that daycare and taking care of kids while parents are at work is incredibly expensive. Summers are especially bad because they have to find activities for their children to do during 2.5 months of no school. Now, if the school is in session for another month, that's another month that parents do not have to pay for ridiculously expensive childcare. So I believe, parents, I think that would be the key point for younger parents. And for older parents, just having their student being able to come home and tell them, oh, guess what I learned because I was in there longer. I had more time to learn. Now, the flip side of the coin, for any good argument, you have to have a counter argument. So the cons, it would be expensive. On a national and state scale, you have to pay teachers, you have to pay custodial staff, you have to pay for air conditioning or heating, depending on what kind of or what part of the country you're in. So this means another month of teaching would cost quite a lot of money. But again, you're saving in childcare, you're saving in food for the students because they can get lunch, free food for lunch. And I mean, this is more of a parent side. So I think that would be the biggest drawback, and would cause the biggest problem on a national scale to try to afford, especially in the times that we're in, trying to afford this program. And another con that I know was especially true for me, and this is for the older, 14 and up, is that during time off, students get jobs, and or during the year, students can't have a longer day or a longer school year because they're at home taking care of younger siblings or their older grandparents or something like that. So being in school a month longer would be a month less of opportunity for students. And I feel like this is a problem that, I mean, it would have to be give and take. I mean, granted, you're in school longer, but a drawback would be is that you would have less time of uninterrupted time to, contribute to the economy. But I think that with anything, there is a give and take. And I know that not necessarily having a longer school year creates more flexibility, but in my manifesto, I bring up the point where state governments should be able to, or even school districts, should be able to create flexibility in the amount of the two or the distribution of the 200 days they have to have their students in instruction. Meaning, in Alaska, going to school during the cold months that is mandated by the national government is not necessarily a great idea. They have the summers off, which and not necessarily just Alaska, but a lot of the northern states when the time to be outside is good and time to travel from home to school is acceptable and not dangerous. So I feel like amount of flexibility since we're creating more school would be needed for each school district to adjust to the cons and the problems that would arise for this. And along with this podcast, I've linked some videos of one of them is a question posed by a student and the opinions of President Barack Obama and a couple other little kind of experts talking about the situation and their thoughts on the whole expanding the school year. But I believe that for the overall, especially on a world scale, we are behind. So I feel like we need to catch up, and this would allow for more time for teachers to be teaching and not prepping for national exams. And I feel like it's an overall good idea for our country. I've been Jacob Hill, and this has been my Manifesto podcast. Thank you.